Ben Cooper's welding torch sputtered and went out. He swore under his breath and grabbed a new fuel cell. He was the only one still working in the industrial sector at Station 12 after midnight. The pay was terrible, but he could keep the lights on in his tiny room for another month if he worked extra hours. He heard it then. It sounded like thunder, but there was no thunder in space. The roof of his repair shop blew up and fell in. The metal beams bent like paper. A shower of orange and white sparks fell. Ben threw himself behind a workbench and covered his head with his arms, sure he was going to die. Things fell apart around him. His toolboxes were all over the floor. The emergency lights turned on, flooding everything with bright red light. Ben looked up when the dust settled. There was a dragon in the ruins of his shop. Not a hologram. Not a creature from a virtual reality game. A dragon that is real and alive. It took up the whole space and its scales were the color of deep ocean water. Each scale was as big as Ben's hand. Wings were tightly folded against its sides because there wasn't enough room to spread them. Eyes like melted gold, shining in the emergency lights. Ben's legs wouldn't move. His body had turned to stone, and every instinct told him to run. The dragon's huge head dropped. Ben saw scars on its neck that were old wounds that hadn't healed well. This wasn't an animal from the zoo. This was something crazy, something that had fought, been hurt, and lived. Then Ben saw what the dragon was holding in its front claws. A child. A baby bird no bigger than a retriever dog was held in those deadly claws with impossible care. The little dragon's scales should have been bright and glowing, like all dragon scales are known to be. Instead they were boring. Flickering. Like a light bulb that is about to go out. The mother dragon took a step forward. The floor creaked as she walked on it. She moved so carefully and slowly, as if she were afraid that any sudden movement would break something valuable. She put the baby down at Ben's feet. Ben looked down at it. The chest of the hatchling hardly moved. It looked like every little breath hurt. The patterns that glowed in the dark on its scales were going out one by one, starting at the tail and moving toward the head. Ben had worked with machines long enough to know what that meant. The system broke down. Stopping. The mother dragon made a noise. Not a growl. Something more desperate and soft. She pushed the baby closer to Ben with one claw, then pulled it back. Waiting. I'm not a doctor, Ben said. He spoke in a low voice. I don't fix machines. He looked into the dragon's eyes. Really met him. There was smartness there. Comprehension. And one more thing. Hope. She brought her sick baby to him because she thought he could help. She knew somehow. She might have seen people before. She might have seen them heal wounds that should have killed them. Maybe she had heard stories. No matter what the reason, she had broken through the ceiling of a space station and put everything on the line to get her child to a human. For him. The alarms at the station went off. Every hallway was filled with sirens. The red lights blinked one after the other. Ben heard people yelling in the distance and the loud thud of boots on metal floors. Police. They would be here in a few minutes. They would kill the dragon right away. The rules were clear. It was important to get rid of any alien life forms that weren't supposed to be there, especially predators. No questions. No exceptions. Ben looked down at the baby bird again. It made a sound that was hard to hear. A whimper. His hands moved even though his brain didn't tell them to. He took his toolbox and pulled it closer. He found the medical scanner he kept for emergencies, the one he bought 3 years ago after the accident. After Emma. He ran the scanner over the body of the baby. The readings made his blood run cold. Toxin. Toxin for pest control given out by the council. The chemical compound lit up on his screen in a sickly green color, and it spread through the baby dragon's organs like poison ink in water. The same poison that killed his daughter. The Galactic Council said it was safe for controlled use in colony maintenance. The same one that had made Emma's heart stop and doctors told him there was nothing they could do. Ben's jaw tightened. His hands turned into fists. The hatchling had about 10 minutes left. It was strong 15. The poison was killing its organs one by one just like it had done to Emma. The same way the council had stopped every investigation, every lawsuit, and every parent who wanted answers. The hallway outside his store was lit up by plasma fire. Someone yelled orders. The dragon mother roared and the sound made the dust fall from the ceiling. She was holding them back to give her baby more time. Giving Ben more time to decide. He could leave. Let the baby die. Let the guards deal with the dragon. Make a report. Return to his life of quiet sadness and long hours at work. Be safe. Stay out of sight. Or he could do what he couldn't do 3 years ago. He could fight. Ben hit the door. The heavy blast doors started to close little by little. Plasma fire burned the wall outside while security tried to shoot through the hole. The doors slammed shut with a loud clang. Ben knelt down next to the baby bird. He took out all of his medical supplies. Bandages, a spray that kills germs, tape for surgery, and his plasma cutter which he used to do precise welding. The one he was going to use for surgery. "Stay with me, little one," Ben said softly. He turned on the cutter and set it to the highest setting. His hands were steady. Years of welding had taught him how to be precise. "Today is not your day to die. Not while I'm in charge." Outside, the mother dragon roared again. Closer now. More in need. Security was pushing her away. The first cut was made by Ben. The hatchling's blood was black and smoked when it touched metal. Ben could see 6 poison barbs stuck in its flesh, each one pumping poison into the tiny body. They looked like thorns made of crystallized poison, and they glowed with the same sickly green light. He could see his daughter's face in his mind. Emma, 8 years old, asking him why her chest hurt, why she couldn't get enough air, why the doctors kept telling her she was fine when she clearly wasn't. Ben's hand didn't shake when he pulled out the first barb. 1 down. 5 more to go. There was an explosion outside. The doors to the blast zone bent but stayed closed. Ben kept on cutting. Kept pulling. Kept going. He was powerless 3 years ago. 3 years ago he believed the police when they said there was nothing they could do. Not again. The patterns on the hatchling's body that glowed in the dark flickered, going away quickly. Ben pulled the 6th barb out and threw it across the room. The baby dragon gasped. A real breath. For the first time since its mother laid it at Ben's feet, its chest fully expanded. But the poison was still in its blood. Still going. Still killing. Ben's eyes moved quickly around his store. He needed a filter. Needed something to get rid of the poison first. His arc welder. The system for filtering the coolant. Was crazy. It shouldn't work. The system for cooling was made for machines, not for living tissue. But he could see Emma's face in his mind. Emma telling him to stop hurting her. Emma lying still in that hospital bed. Ben moved faster than he had ever moved before. He tore the coolant lines off of his welder. Got the medical 4 kit. His fingers moved quickly as he connected tubes, changed the direction of pumps, and built something that had never been made before. The doors to the blast room creaked. They were getting through. Ben put the 4 into the hatchling's tiny foreleg and turned on the power. The improvised filter started to hum. Black blood flowed through clear tubes, went through the industrial coolant system and came back cleaner. Drop by drop, the poison was being filtered out. The patterns on the hatchling's body started to glow more. Ben saw the little chest rise and fall with deeper breaths. Tears made lines in the dirt on his face. He whispered, "That's it. That's it, sweetheart. You're going to get there." The doors to the blast zone blew open. Security forces rushed in with their rifles raised, and red targeting lasers painted Ben's chest with a dozen deadly dots. "Get away from the thing," the squad leader yelled. Ben got up. Not fast. He was covered in the blood of the baby. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline had finally worn off. But he got in the way of the baby dragon and the guns that he said, "No. That's an order, Cooper. I don't care. You are betraying your country. That thing is called." Ben said, "She's a baby." His voice was soft, but it cut through the noise like a knife. "She's going to die. And I'm going to save her. To stop me you'll have to shoot me first," he said. The rifles didn't go down. The wall behind them blew up. The mother dragon crashed through, sending pieces of metal and debris flying everywhere. Her scales were burned by plasma fire. One wing was hanging at the wrong angle, torn and bleeding. But she only saw one thing. Her child. Alive. Breathing. Getting brighter every second. Ben saw the dragon mother look at him. Looked at him closely. Saw him standing between her kid and the people with guns. She put her huge head down on the floor. A bow. Giving in to the person who had saved her baby's life. After that she opened her wings. Ignoring the pain, both of them, even the one that was torn. She spread them out over Ben and her baby, covering them both and protecting them with her own body. The leader of the squad lifted his gun. His finger hit the trigger. Fire at all targets. The dragon's roar cut through the air like a real force. It wasn't just noise. It was a whole different thing. Something that went straight to the part of the brain that remembers when humans were prey without going through the ears. All of the fingers on all of the triggers stopped moving. All of the muscles froze. Every heartbeat skipped a beat. Commander Patricia Hayes walked through the broken door in that moment of perfect, terrified silence. She was 50 years old, had gray hair pulled back tightly, and her uniform was pressed even though things were crazy. Her boots made a crunching sound on broken glass and bent metal. She didn't blink when the dragon loomed over her soldiers. Not even a blink. "Put down your guns," she said. She spoke in a calm voice. Steady. The voice of someone who had given orders in worse situations than this. "Ma'am, the rules clearly say," the squad leader began. "Lieutenant, I know what protocol says. I wrote half of it. Lower. Here. Weapons." The rifles fell. Not all the way. But that's enough. Hayes looked around at everything. The dragon mother was huge and bleeding, and her wings were ripped to shreds, but she still protected the human and baby. Ben Cooper, whose black blood smoked as it dripped. The hatchling was connected to a machine that looked like it was made from spare parts and desperation. Hayes knew Ben. Everyone in charge knew Ben Cooper. The welder who lost his daughter 3 years ago. The person who had tried to sue the council. The person who had been told to be quiet and move on in a polite way. The man who buried his little girl and then worked 16-hour shifts to keep from dreaming, which meant remembering. Hayes said softly, "Cooper. What did you do?" Ben didn't turn away. He didn't look down. Now, there was something different about his face. Something that wasn't there 3 years ago when he sat in her office, broken and begging for answers she couldn't give. Ben said, "I saved a life. Something I should have fought harder to do 3 years ago." The baby bird chirped. A small sound, but it was louder than before. The scales were getting brighter and brighter as time went on. The temporary filter was doing its job. It really works. Hayes' communicator started to work. "Commander, we have Galactic Council members on the emergency channel. They want an update on the situation right away." Hayes tapped on her phone. "This is Hayes. Stand by." "Ma'am, they aren't asking. They are demanding. They say that the dragon must be killed right away because it entered council space without permission. The person who helped must be held until the trial." Trial. Hayes knew what that meant. Council trials weren't about doing the right thing. They were about setting an example. Ben would go to some detention center and never come out. The mother dragon moved a little. She was getting weaker. Hayes could tell by the way her wings shook and the way she was breathing heavily. She had taken a lot of plasma hits to keep her baby safe. She was dying a little bit at a time. But she didn't leave Ben and the baby alone. Ben put his hand in his pocket. Slowly. Every rifle followed the movement. He took out a chip with data on it. 3 years of proof, Ben said. He raised it so Hayes could see it. Every death from pest control in this field. Every report that was buried. Every family that lost a loved one to toxins from the council. Every time you were told to look the other way and say it was just bad luck. Hayes felt something cold settle in her stomach. Ben went on, "My daughter wasn't the first." His voice was steady, but there was steel in it. "I did research later. Found other families. More kids. Other parents were told that their kids died of natural causes when they were really being poisoned. Not fast. For months. Years." He moved forward. The dragon mother growled softly, but she didn't stop him. "The council isn't in charge of pests, Commander. They're killing a lot of people. Against the dragons. Against colonists. Against anyone who doesn't fit into their perfect, controlled universe." Ben gave the chip to someone. Hayes looked at it. She put her hand up. Stopped in the middle. She said softly, "If I take that, if I look at what's on there, I can't forget it." "You already know it," Ben said. "You knew it 3 years ago when you told me there was nothing you could do to help my daughter. You knew it every time you wrote another report that said, 'natural causes,' when you knew it wasn't natural." Hayes' jaw got tight. "Be careful, Cooper." "Why? What are you going to do? Put me in detention? The council is already going to do that. Kill me? The council is planning that too." Ben's voice got louder. "I have nothing to lose, Commander." "But you do. You have 2 kids in the academy. There are grandkids on the way. What happens if the council thinks your family is in the way of a project to make things bigger?" Her communicator made a crackling sound again. "Commander, the council is demanding an answer. 30 minutes until they say the station is hostile. Unfriendly." That was the council's code word for target. Bombing from space. 20,000 colonists would be gone before they knew what hit them. All of this happened because one man saved a baby's life. Hayes took the piece. The leader of the squad stepped up. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you can't." "Dismissed, Lieutenant." "But protocol?" "I said dismissed." Hayes' voice broke like a whip. The soldiers walked out, glancing back at the dragon, Ben, and their commander, who was suddenly throwing away his 30-year career. Hayes put the chip into her datapad after they left. As she went through the files, her face turned white. Reports from doctors. Results of the autopsy. Tests for toxic substances. All of them show the same thing. Toxin for pest control in the council. In kids. In grown-ups. In anyone who lived in colonies that were marked for future development. Rates of death that went up every year. Investigations that didn't lead anywhere. People who asked questions and then mysteriously moved to deep space jobs. 3 years of evidence that the Galactic Council was slowly killing its own people. God, please help me, Hayes said. The mother dragon made a noise. A low rumble that wasn't quite a growl. Hayes looked up and saw those golden eyes. The dragon's translator started to work. Old technology that is broken and barely works. But it worked. My people. The voice was female and sounded like it was in pain. Remember, people. Before the council. We were friends. Hayes's datapad fell out of her hands. My grandmother told stories. Very kind. Of people who healed when others killed. I came to see if the stories were real. The dragon's breathing was getting worse. More work. Black blood collected under her ripped wing. Council killed us. A long time ago. Chased us. Said we were a threat. Monsters. Changed history. Made themselves heroes. Hayes felt the floor shift under her feet. My friend died, bringing the baby here. Through the space of the council. He thought, old stories. That people would help, when the galaxy said to let it die. Again the hatchling chirped. It was now glowing so brightly that it was hard to look at. Ben carefully took the 4 out of its tiny leg. The filter had done what it was supposed to do. There was no more poison. The little dragon stretched out its wings to see how strong they were. They were small, just big enough to lift it off the ground. But they did work. It looked up at Ben with eyes full of trust and wonder, then it chirped and climbed up on his shoulder. Ben's hand went up on its own to steady it. The baby turtle wrapped itself around his neck like a scaly scarf and nuzzled his cheek. Hayes somehow knew that Serafina was her name. She looked at her baby with eyes full of love and relief. After that, she turned to Hayes again. You can choose now. Like we did hundreds of years ago. Stand with council, or remember who you were meant to be. Hayes's phone made a crackling sound. Commander, you have 15 minutes until the deadline. The council fleet is powering weapons. They want to make sure one last time. Hayes turned to Ben. At the baby bird on his shoulder. At Serafina, she was willing to die to save them both. There was her data pad on the floor, with 3 years' worth of proof that everything she had believed in was a lie. She thought about her kids. Her grandkids. What she would say if they asked her why she had done nothing. Hayes grabbed her phone. This is Commander Patricia Hayes speaking to everyone. Protocol 7 for emergencies. Make all ways of talking open. Broadcast across the whole station. Broadcast across the whole sector. I don't care if every ship in the galaxy hears this. The voice of her communications officer came back confused. Ma'am, that's going to go out to everyone. With the council as well. Hayes said, I know. That's the point. She grabbed her datapad and sent Ben's proof to the main computer at the station. Send everything out, she told them. All of the files. All reports. All of the proof. Send it to every ship, every colony, and every station that can get it. Commander, that's against the law. Hayes smiled. The smile wasn't happy. Yes. Yes, it is. Just do it. 10 seconds later, the truth showed up on every screen at Station 12. And the galaxy started to wake up all over the sector. The broadcast was like a shockwave. Work stopped all over Station 12. Miners put down their drills. Workers at the dock left their cargo loaders. Families who had come together for late dinners stood still in front of their screens, watching medical reports go by. Reports that they had never been able to see. Reports that their governments had hidden. Ben saw it happen on the security cameras in his broken store. People's faces change as they read. From confusion to understanding. Understanding turning into anger. A woman in Sector 4 fell to her knees, covering her mouth with her hands. 2 years ago, her son died. They had said it was natural causes. The toxicology report on the screen said something else. A man in the mining area punched a hole in a wall. His wife. His daughter. They both died within 6 months of each other. The doctors had told him it was bad luck. The autopsy results now showed that both bodies had the same poison markers. There were a lot of people in the hallways of Station 12. Not freaking out. Not running. Walking with a goal in mind toward the command center. A lot of them. Then tens of thousands. Welders are still in their work clothes. Mechanics with dirty hands from grease. Parents carrying kids who should have died but lived for some reason. They weren't causing trouble. They were coming together. Standing next to each other. Finally getting why so many of them had lost someone. Seraphina's breathing got shallower in Ben's shop. With each hard breath, the translator on her chest crackled. They know now, she said in a low voice. The truth, you told them the truth. Hayes stood at the door and watched the crowds on the security cameras. Her phone was going crazy. Messages were coming in on every frequency. Her communications officer told her, Commander, we're getting messages from 73 colonies in the sector. They're all saying the same thing. What are they talking about? Hayes asked. They are with us. They've all lost loved ones as well. All of them have stories like these reports. Hayes shut her eyes. There are 73 colonies. Many thousands of people. Possibly millions. Everyone was poisoned. Everyone was quiet. Everyone was told to accept their losses and move on. Her communicator buzzed with an override for a priority. Council frequency. Commander Hayes. The voice was cold and short. Morrison, a member of the council. You have started a war with the Galactic Council. You have shared secret information with the public. You have kept an illegal alien life form in your home. You have 10 minutes to give yourself and the human trader up or Station 12 will be destroyed. Top secret. Hayes's voice was sharp. You mean proof of mass murder? Those reports were not in the right context. They were part of the rules for managing the population that were needed for what? Hayes stopped him. For getting rid of colonies so you could sell the land to the highest bidder? To get rid of people who asked too many questions? Nothing was said on the other end. Then Morrison's voice came back and it was even colder. 9 minutes, Commander. The line went silent. Ben looked at the baby bird on his shoulder. The little dragon was making a sound like far-off thunder. It had no idea it had just started a fight. Ben said, I have to turn myself in. Me they want. Please let me go. Save the station. No. The voice came from the door. Ben looked around. There was a man there. Older, maybe 60, and wearing a miner's jumpsuit. A woman in a medical uniform stood behind him. There were dozens more behind her. Filling up the hallway outside Ben's store. The miner said, You saved a life when they said let it die. His voice was rough and scarred from years of breathing in air that had been used before. My grandson passed away 3 years ago. Same poison. I just read his report. I've been carrying his picture around every day since then, thinking I let him down in some way. The woman moved forward. My sister. My niece. Both gone in a year. I work as a nurse. I knew something was wrong. But every time I asked a question, I was moved to a new job. Threatened. Mind your own business, I was told. More people joined in. A teacher who had lost students. A maintenance worker who had buried his wife. A young mother with a baby who had somehow lived when a dozen other kids in the colony daycare had not. The miner said to Ben, They want you? They go through all of us first. Hayes's phone rang again. Her second in command. Ma'am, you need to look at this. Hayes turned on the outside cameras. The area around Station 12 was getting crowded. Boats. A lot of them. Transportation for colonies. Ships that mine. Personal boats that are barely big enough for a family. All of them are going to the station. Not attacking, her officer said. They're making a circle around us. They're keeping us safe. And something else came up behind the ships. The area around the Beacon Nebula moved like water. Colors that shouldn't be in nature bled through the fabric of reality. And then they came. Dragons. Not just one or two. A lot of them. Adults, huge and old, with scales that glowed with bioluminescent patterns that lit up the dark space around them. They moved in a line, and even though they were big, they were graceful. Their wings could have wrapped around whole buildings. Seraphina made a noise. Thank goodness. Pride. Bang. She whispered, My people. They heard my call. They come. The lead dragon was bigger than Seraphina. Scales like polished obsidian and eyes that shone with knowledge that was older than space travel. It put itself right in the middle of Station 12 and the Council fleet. The voice of Hayes's communications officer shook. Ma'am, we're getting a message. It's from the dragon. The big one. Let it go. The voice that filled the command center was deep, resonant, and perfectly clear. Manold. I am Draken, the elder of the free flights. We heard our sister's voice. We have seen the humans show. We remember the old alliance, even though the council wiped it from history. Hayes spoke up. The council will attack. They have guns that. Draken cut in, we know their weapons. There was no fear in his voice. We have lived through their genocide for 300 years. We won't be hiding anymore. Not when one person showed us that our faith was not misplaced. Ben stepped forward and the baby bird was still on his shoulder. I just saved a baby. I didn't mean to start a fight. Draken said, "You didn't start this war. The Council did. 300 years ago. You just reminded the whole galaxy what it means to be brave." Hayes' phone rang again. Morrison's voice, but now it's different. "Not sure." "Commander Hayes, the Council is ready to talk." "Now you want to talk?" Hayes stopped him. "After threatening to kill 20,000 civilians? The situation has changed. We're open to talking." "No." Hayes' voice was like iron. "You're willing to talk because you're watching a dragonfly and 73 colonies just declared their independence. You're not talking about it. You're stalling." The Council fleet stayed in the same place on the view screen. 20 ships of war. Each one can destroy a planet. But they didn't shoot. Because they were up against hundreds of dragons and thousands of ships with people on board who had nothing to lose. 5 minutes, Morrison said. "You have 5 minutes to think about it again, Commander." The line was cut off. Serafina had a hard time lifting her head. The baby bird chirped in pain when it sensed its mother's pain. It jumped off of Ben's shoulder and crawled over to Serafina, pushing its small body against her big nose. "Baby is safe," Serafina said softly. "That's all that matters." "Don't," Ben said. He knelt down next to the dragon. "Don't give up. You brought your baby to me because you had faith. Now I need you to have faith for a little while longer." Serafina's golden eyes were on him. "Why do you care about the dragon?" Ben's throat got tight. He thought about his daughter. Of holding her hand while she was in the hospital. Of telling her that everything would be fine when he knew it wouldn't be. Ben said, "I couldn't save my little girl 3 years ago. And every day since then I've wondered if I fought hard enough. If I asked the right things. If I made enough noise." He touched the little head of the hatchling. "You let me fight again. To keep going. To be the person I should have been 3 years ago." The baby bird looked at Ben and then back at its mom. It made a noise. Not a peep. Something more. More determined. Then it started to shine. Not the soft glow-in-the-dark light from before. This was not the same. More light. The light moved from the baby to Serafina, making her feel warm, golden, and alive. Hayes' tools went crazy. "What is that? What's going on?" The voice of Draken filled the command center again. "Bond with the dragon. Magic from long ago that most people have forgotten. When a dragon picks a person and that person agrees with a pure heart, they are connected. What one person feels, the other person feels too. Including healing." The light got stronger. Serafina's broken wing started to heal itself. The plasma burns along her scales went away. The heavy breathing got better. And something that shouldn't have happened all over Station 12. Kids who had been slowly dying sat up in their beds and felt hungry and full of energy. People who worked with chronic illnesses felt decades of pain leave their bodies. In an instant, every trace of council toxin and every drop of poison that had been building up in their blood for years was gone. The baby bird had become friends with Ben. And through that bond, the love of a mother for her child and a man who had found purpose in protecting something innocent, the healing spread to everyone. Ben gasped as warmth spread through his body. Injuries from years of welding healed. The pain in his chest didn't go away, and the grief that had been crushing him for 3 years didn't go away either. But it became easier to deal with. He could carry it without drowning. Serafina's eyes opened wide. She stood up, her wing completely healed and her strength coming back. "Impossible," Hayes said quietly. Draken said, "Not impossible. Before the council, this is what people and dragons used to do together. We got better. We kept safe. This is what they tried to get rid of." Hayes' phone rang. Morrison again. But his voice was different now. The cold authority was gone, and in its place was something that sounded like fear. "Commander, what just happened? Our sensors are picking up huge amounts of energy. Our medical teams say that council staff at nearby stations are all asking questions. They won't follow orders. What did you do?" Ace turned to Ben. At Serafina, who was standing tall and healed. The baby was purring on Ben's shoulder. At the crowds of colonists outside her command center, they were no longer victims but survivors ready to fight. She grinned. Hayes said, "We reminded them who we are." "And who you are." Morrison, stand down. "This is over." The healing wave changed everything. Within minutes, Station 12's medical bay was flooded with people who couldn't believe what had just happened. A girl who'd been wheelchair-bound for 2 years was running through the corridors, laughing and crying at the same time. An old dock worker who'd lost his hearing in an industrial accident could suddenly hear his grandson's voice. A mother held her son who'd been dying of mysterious respiratory failure, watching him breathe easily for the first time in months. But it wasn't just Station 12. The energy wave had grown. Nearby stations. Ships in the sector. People were waking up all over the place where the hatchling's healing light had touched. People who'd been slowly poisoned for years without knowing it. And they all wanted to know what was going on. Hayes watched her communications board light up like a festival display. Incoming messages from every station, every colony, every mining operation in the sector. And beyond. The broadcast was spreading. Jumping from relay to relay. System to system. The truth was out, and it was moving faster than the council could contain it. "Commander, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies," her communications officer said, voice shaking with disbelief. "They're saying the same thing happened there. People healed. Children waking up from comas. Workers who could barely function suddenly feeling like themselves again." "How far did it spread?" Hayes asked. "Still calculating, but, ma'am, we're talking hundreds of stations. Maybe thousands. The hatchlings bond with Cooper. It's like it created a wave that reminded everyone what the council took from them," Ben finished quietly. He stood in Hayes' command center now, the hatchling still perched on his shoulder. The little dragon had saved thousands of lives without even meaning to. Just loved its new human. That was all. Simple love, and it had broken through centuries of corruption. Serafina stood behind Ben, fully healed now. Her presence filled the room, but people were getting used to it. Fear was being replaced by something else. Respect. Hope. Draken's voice came through the speakers again. "Commander Hayes, I'm sending you coordinates. 6 locations. These are the sanctuaries where my people have hidden for 3 centuries. Dragons who survived the council's genocide. Families who have lived in the shadows, afraid to exist." Hayes pulled up the coordinates. They appeared on her main screen. Nebulas. Asteroid fields. Ice moons. Places so remote that even the council's sensors had missed them. "There are hundreds of us," Draken continued. "Maybe thousands. We have been waiting. Waiting for a sign that the galaxy had not forgotten what we once were. What humans and dragons built together." Ben stepped closer to the screen. "You've been hiding all this time? Watching your people die instead of fighting back?" "We were going to die anyway," Draken said, and there was a lot of pain in his voice. "We fought when the council came for us. We lost. They had weapons that we couldn't match. Technology that turned our own biology against us. So we made a decision. Hide and survive, or fight and go extinct. But you're here now," Hayes said. "Because one human chose compassion over obedience. One welder on a forgotten station decided a baby's life mattered more than his own safety." Draken paused. "That is the humanity we remember. The humanity we mourned when the council rewrote history." Hayes' communicator buzzed again. She was almost afraid to answer it. Every time Morrison called, the situation got more complicated. But it wasn't Morrison this time. "Commander Hayes, this is Captain Raymond Clark of the Council warship Valiant. I need to speak with you. Privately." Hayes glanced at Ben, who nodded. She opened a secure channel. "This is Hayes. What do you want, Captain?" Clark's face appeared on a smaller screen. He was younger than Hayes expected. Maybe 40, with tired eyes and a military bearing that looked like it was crumbling. "My daughter was on medical leave. Chronic illness. They said it was genetic. That nothing could be done." Hayes waited. "She just called me," Clark continued. His voice cracked. 10 minutes ago. She's running. Playing. The doctors say she's completely healthy. Like the illness never existed." He looked directly at Hayes. "That show you sent? Those reports?" "My daughter's symptoms are exactly the same. Captain, I don't know what you want me to do." "The council poisoned my daughter," Clark said flatly. "For 3 years they poisoned her. And they told me it was genetic. That it was my fault somehow, bad bloodline, wrong genetics. They made me believe I gave my child a death sentence just by being her father." Hayes saw the fury building behind his eyes. The same fury she'd seen in Ben's face. The fury of a parent who'd been lied to about their child's suffering. "My crew knows," Clark continued. "I showed them the broadcast. We all have families on colonies. We all have people who've gotten sick with mysterious illnesses. And now we all know why." "What are you telling me, Captain?" Clark took a breath. "The council ordered us to fire on Station 12. Civilian target. 20,000 people. They said it was necessary to maintain order. To prevent panic. To protect the greater good." His jaw set hard. "I'm telling you, Commander, that the Council warship Valiant will not be following that order. And I'm not the only one." Hayes' communications board exploded with new signals. Other ships from the Council fleet. One by one their captains were requesting secure channels. Within an hour, 17 of the 20 Council warships had refused their orders. The 3 that remained loyal pulled back, weapons still charged but clearly uncertain. 3 ships against hundreds of dragons, thousands of colony vessels, and now 17 of their own fleet's warships. Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He looked pale, shaken, like a man watching his entire world collapse. "Commander Hayes," he said, "the Council is prepared to offer terms." "Terms?" Hayes almost laughed. "You were going to kill us all 30 minutes ago. The situation has evolved. The situation is that your own fleet mutinied because you ordered them to murder their families," Hayes shot back. "The situation is that the galaxy just learned you've been committing genocide for centuries. The situation is that you lost." Morrison's composure cracked. "You don't understand what you've done. The Council maintains order across 1,000 systems. Without us there will be chaos. Or planets fighting over resources, species turning on each other. Like you turned on the dragons?" Ben stepped into view of the camera. "Like you turned on colonists who were inconvenient? Like you turned on anyone who asked questions?" Morrison stared at Ben. "You're the welder. The one who started all this." "I saved a baby's life," Ben said quietly. "That's all. Everything else? That's on you. You built a system so corrupt that one act of kindness brought it down." Serafina moved into the camera's view. Morrison's eyes widened. "I am Serafina," she said through her translator. "My mate died bringing our child to find humans. He believed the old stories. That humans were brave. That they fought for what was right, even when it cost them everything." She looked at Ben. He was correct. The hatchling chirped and nuzzled Ben's cheek. Morrison was silent for a long moment. "What do you want?" Hayes stepped forward. "Justice. Real justice. Every family that lost someone to your poison gets the truth. Every colony that was cleared for your expansion projects gets their land back. Every species you tried to erase gets their history restored." "That's impossible. The Council would never." "The Council doesn't exist anymore," Draken's voice cut through. His massive form appeared in the background of the transmission, visible through Station 12's viewport. "Not as it was. You built your power on lies and genocide. Those foundations have crumbled. What comes next will be built differently. You can't just dissolve the Galactic Council." Morrison's voice rose, desperate now. "We're the only thing holding civilization together." "You're the thing civilization needs to survive," Hayes corrected. "There's a difference." More ships appeared on the sensors. Not Council. Not military. Civilian transports from colonies across the sector. Medical vessels. Supply ships. All broadcasting the same message. They stood with Station 12.1 of Hayes's officers called out. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim Coalition. They're declaring independence from the Council. They're forming their own government. The mining guilds are doing the same," another officer added. "So are the agricultural colonies in the Beta sector." Hayes watched the galactic map light up with new signals. Colonies declaring independence. Species emerging from hiding. The Council's carefully maintained order was dissolving in real time. And at the center of it all was a welder holding a baby dragon, the most unlikely revolutionary in galactic history. Morrison's face on the screen was ashen. "You've destroyed everything." "No," Ben said. "You destroyed everything. We're just cleaning up the mess." The transmission cut off. Hayes turned to Ben. "You know what you've done, right? The galaxy's going to tear itself apart for a while. There will be fighting. Chaos. People settling old grudges." Ben looked down at the hatchling on his shoulder. The little dragon was purring, completely unaware that its existence had sparked a revolution. "I know. But maybe that's better than the slow death the Council was giving us. At least now we have a choice." Serafina's wing draped gently over Ben's shoulders. "My people will help. We remember how to build. How to heal. We will teach humans again if they will learn." Draken's voice filled the command center one more time. "The Council's flagship is retreating. The remaining loyal ships are following. They know they cannot win this fight." Outside the viewport, the 3 Council warships turned and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Running. The Dragon flight circled Station 12 in victory, their scales blazing with light. And across the galaxy, in 1,000 colonies and stations, people looked up at the stars and realized they were finally free. 3 days after the Council fled, Station 12 looked like a completely different place. The massive hole in Ben's shop ceiling was still there, but now it was decorated. Someone had hung lights around the jagged edges. Children drew pictures of dragons on the exposed metal beams. It had become a monument, a reminder of the night everything changed. Ben stood in what was left of his workspace, watching repair crews work on the neighboring sections. The hatchling, everyone was calling her Hope now, sat on his usual workbench batting at a welding rod like it was a toy. She'd grown in just 3 days. Not much, but enough that Ben had to adjust how he carried her. "You're going to be too big for my shoulders soon," Ben said, scratching under her chin. Hope purred and leaned into his hand. Seraphina's massive head poked through the hole in the ceiling. "She likes you. Dragon bonds are rare. Last recorded bond was 300 years ago, before the council." "What happened to that human?" Ben asked. "She lived to be 160 years old. The dragon bond extends human life, shares dragon vitality." Seraphina's golden eyes sparkled with amusement. "You are stuck with my daughter for a very long time, Ben Cooper." Ben looked at Hope, who chirped happily and went back to playing with the welding rod. Could think of worse fates. Hayes walked in, carefully stepping over debris. She looked exhausted. 3 days of non-stop coordination, negotiation, and crisis management had aged her a decade. "We need to talk." Ben set down the tool he'd been pretending to organize. "That sounds ominous. 73 colonies have declared independence. The mining guilds are forming their own coalition. The agricultural sectors are refusing to ship food to council worlds. And we're getting reports of fighting in the core systems. People who benefited from the council versus people who suffered under it." "I know," Ben said quietly. "I've been watching the feeds. There are casualties. Stations damaged. Ships destroyed. People are calling this the Freedom War." Hayes leaned against a workbench. "Some are blaming you. Saying you should have just let the dragon baby die. That the old system was better than chaos." Ben's jaw tightened. "You think I should have?" "No." Hayes met his eyes. "But I need you to understand what you started. This isn't going to be easy. It's going to get worse before it gets better. A lot of people are going to die in the crossfire. More than were already dying from the council's poison?" Ben shot back. "More than the thousands of children who were being slowly murdered because they lived on inconvenient land?" Hayes was quiet for a moment. "No, probably not. But the deaths from the council were invisible. Hidden. These deaths are going to be broadcast across every news feed in the galaxy. And you're going to have to live with being the face of this revolution." "I'm not a revolutionary. I'm a welder who saved a baby." "History doesn't care what you meant to be," Hayes said. "It only cares what you did. And what you did changed the galaxy." Draken's voice rumbled from outside. "She is correct, Ben Cooper. You are a symbol now. Whether you wish it or not." The massive elder dragon had been a constant presence around Station 12, coordinating with the other dragon flights. Hundreds of dragons had emerged from hiding, and they all looked to Draken for leadership. "The colonies are asking for help," Draken continued. "They want dragons to protect them from council retaliation. They want humans and dragons to form a new alliance like the old days." "Can we?" Ben asked. "Form an alliance, I mean. After 300 years. Seraphina shifted her position, settling more comfortably on top of the damaged building. "My people remember. We passed down history through our bloodlines, parent to hatchling. We know what was. The question is, do humans remember? Or did the council erase too much?" Ace pulled out her datapad. "I've been digging through old archives. Pre-council records. Most of it was deleted, but I found fragments." She pulled up an image. This was taken 400 years ago, before the council rose to power. Ben looked at the ancient photograph. It showed a construction site. Massive buildings being erected, frameworks of metal and stone reaching toward the sky. And working on them side by side were humans and dragons. Dragons using their strength to lift beams into place. Humans directing the construction with engineering precision. Working together. Partners. "We built the first space stations together," Hayes said. "Humans had the knowledge. Dragons had the strength and the ability to work in vacuum without suits. We were perfect partners. Until the council decided dragons were too powerful to be allowed to exist," Seraphina added bitterly. "They feared what we could do together. So they turned people against us. You made us into monsters in your stories. Hunted us down. And they were in charge of everything while we were gone." Hope chirped and climbed onto Ben's shoulder, her favorite spot. She was getting heavy, but Ben didn't care. "What do we do now?" Ben asked. "The council's broken. The galaxy's in chaos. Where do we even start?" "With what you did 3 days ago," Draken said. "We begin with kindness. With healing. With choosing to help instead of choosing to follow." Over the next week, something remarkable happened. Dragons began working with colonists across the sector. Not as servants or tools but as equals. A mining colony that had been struggling with a collapsed tunnel called for help. 3 dragons arrived within hours, using their strength to clear debris and their fire to melt through blocked passages. They saved 17 trapped miners. An agricultural station facing crop failure due to damaged irrigation systems got help from dragons who could fly to parts of the station human workers couldn't safely reach. The repairs that would have taken weeks took 2 days. A medical transport stranded in deep space with failing life support was rescued by a dragon who towed it to the nearest station, flying through vacuum for 16 hours straight to save the patients aboard. Every news feed in the galaxy showed images of dragons and humans working together, helping each other, saving each other. The council tried to spin it as propaganda, as staged events meant to manipulate public opinion. But there were too many incidents, too many witnesses, too many lives saved. The truth was simple: humans and dragons were better together than apart. But not everyone was happy about it. The fighting in the core systems intensified. Council loyalists refused to accept the new reality. They had gotten too much out of the old system and had built their power on the pain of others. They weren't going to give that up without a fight. Hayes coordinated with the newly formed coalition of free colonies, trying to minimize casualties while defending against council attacks. It was exhausting, thankless work. But she kept at it. Ben stayed on Station 12, but his quiet life as a welder was over. Delegations came to visit. Colony leaders who wanted to meet the man who started it all. Journalists who wanted his story. Children who wanted to see the baby dragon who'd healed thousands. Hope was patient with everything. She let the kids touch her scales and laughed when they screamed because she was so warm. Serafina kept an eye on everyone, keeping them safe but letting her daughter talk to people. One child at a time, building trust. Ben stood in the memorial garden that had been built in Station 12's Central Plaza 2 months after the revolution began. It was for everyone who had died from council poison. Names carved in stone for thousands of years. And in the middle, one name that was bigger than the others. Lily Cooper. 8 years old. Passed away 3 years ago. Ben's child. Someone had put flowers by her name. New ones. Now they did that. People who had lost kids to the council left flowers for each other's kids. A way to say, your child was important. You really lost something. It wasn't crazy of you to ask questions. Hope sat quietly and respectfully at Ben's feet. She didn't get memorials, but she did get sad. She pressed against Ben's leg, which was the only way she knew how to comfort him. Ben whispered to the stone, I couldn't save you, Lily. I didn't fight hard enough. Didn't ask the right things. I believed them when they told me there was nothing I could do. The wind blew through the garden. A dragon's call echoed through the station from somewhere close by. But I knew I had to save Hope because of you. I couldn't let another child die when I could have stopped it. Ben's voice broke. And that one choice, it saved thousands of lives. Once the council's poison is gone from the colonies, maybe millions. He put his hand on Lily's name. Your life was important, sweetheart. It was the most important thing. You showed me what I should have been fighting for all along. Not just staying alive. Not just doing what you're told. But keeping the innocent safe. Choosing kindness over ease. Doing the right thing even if it means losing everything. Hope made a soft sound. Ben picked her up and held her close. Serafina landed close by, being careful not to disturb the memorial garden. She was with Draken and a few other dragons. And Hayes, who looked a little less tired than usual. Hayes said, the coalition has voted. They want to create a new government. People and dragons together. Fair representation. Equal voice. Draken said, the new alliance. Named after the old partnership but built on new ones. Foundations of choice, not control. Of diversity, not conformity. Hayes told Ben, they want you to be a part of it. The person who started it all. Ben shook his head. I'm not a politician. I'm not a boss. I'm just... Serafina finished by saying, a welder who saved a baby. Yes, exactly. You are not corrupted by power or blinded by your goals. You did the right thing. This new alliance needs a voice like that. Ben looked at Hope, who was looking at him with her smart golden eyes. She had grown a lot in just 2 months. She would soon be too big to carry. She would grow to be as big as her mother. And because of their bond, Ben would see it. Would love to see the galaxy they were making together. Okay, Ben finally said. But I'm still going to keep my welding shop. Someone has to take care of the station. Hayes smiled. Deal. Ben could see most of Station 12 from where he was standing in the garden's clear dome. The battle left scars on the station, but it was getting better. Dragons and repair crews worked together. Children played with baby dragons in the hallways. Animals that had been taught to be afraid of each other were learning to live next to each other again. It wasn't perfect. There was still fighting going on in the core systems. There are still people who are loyal to the council and don't want things to change. People are still suffering from the effects of hundreds of years of poison and oppression. But it was better. It was hope. Hope chirped and opened her tiny wings to see how they worked. She would be able to fly soon. Soon, like her mother, she'd fly through space with scales that glowed. And Ben would be there with her, teaching her, learning from her, making something new out of what was left behind. One act of kindness had saved more than 2 lives. It had reminded the galaxy of what they had lost, what they could be again. People and dragons. All together. Couples. The way it should have always been. Ben looked up at the stars that were outside the dome. His daughter was out there, a part of the universe now. Maybe watching. He hoped to be proud. He whispered, "We did it, Lily. We changed the universe. Because of you." Hope purred and rubbed her neck against his. And in the distance, dozens of other dragons answered the call of one. A symphony of old voices singing about a new alliance. Of hope brought back. Of a future based on the simple truth that love was stronger than fear and kindness was stronger than cruelty. One desperate mother brought her dying child to a stranger, and that was the start of the revolution. It would go on with millions choosing kindness over ease. And it would work because one welder had shown them all what could happen if you didn't let the innocent suffer. When you decided to help even though the galaxy said to let it die. That was the lesson. That was the gift. That was the alliance that no one could have imagined that would change everything.